Well, I don't think I will ever appreciate solar power as much as I do now. Since it's been out for a while and I've been scraping by on a generator, well, my big generator died, which means I don't have any way to pump power at all. I mean, pump water. It's down in town. My van's dead, so I can't actually transport anything heavy into town. And I'll still have to be paying people to transport me on a long dirt road. And they're really nice folks, but, you know, they got families, and I'm using their time, their vehicle, and their gasoline and their time as a driver. So I got the generator working again, the small one. It's a Honda EU 2000i, great generator, but it was a spark plug. Again, I cleaned it with a toothbrush, not a toothbrush I use. But I've been on candles, and it's been interesting having no electricity, because it's given me a couple of conclusions. One, candles do work. I've been reading by candlelight, and to be honest, it's kind of been nice, because I looked through my shelves of books, and I got a lot of books. Currently, I'm reading the best science writing of 2008, which is a series of books, presumably annual, and actually has topics about science writing that are really interesting. And I'm, not reading all of them, but chapters written by people who really put a lot of thought into what they wrote and interviewed cool people. And so that's been actually enjoyable, because I don't read anymore. Everything's online. I read web pages and things, and now I can't do that. So, like tonight, I'll run out of power again. And I'm not going to run the generator all the time, because that burns gasoline, and I have to go get the gasoline, so it's all annoying. Now, so that was one conclusion I came to, was it's awfully nice to be offline. And I used to read a lot. I grew up reading. And so there's a big difference between reading on the computer, which uses electricity, and reading in a book, which doesn't, but it does use a candle. And then they have Kindles, I guess, which I don't have one of. I used to have a Kindle, and I gave it away, because I give shit away. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not using it, you could use this, and I give it away. Hopefully the person appreciates it. But the other more important realization I've come to is about architecture, and how I should be designing all of my buildings. And I draw designs for a lot of buildings. Should all be designed to maximize use of the sun. And this is not how things are built around here now. It's probably not how things were ever built almost anywhere. And so, really looking at the latitude that I'm at, maximizing the morning sun, the evening sun, and that morning sun is way more important than the evening sun, because that's what's going to combat the coldness of the night that may have taken over part of your building. But also thinking about the southern light and maximizing the amount that we can heat up part of the building. And one of the things people will say to you, if you're designing a passive solar house, a house that uses the sun for heating and light, is they'll say, well, make sure you don't build an oven. And I'm looking at, building small buildings to begin with, but I'm looking at designs for larger buildings that are built into slope and also capture massive amounts of the sun with greenhouse-like structures. Now, even greenhouses are questionable, because glass will eventually break in an earthquake or something, although I can try and design it so it doesn't, and it should be tempered glass so it doesn't become knives falling from the sky upon people. But I no longer agree with the idea of not making a solar oven. I want to make part of that building as absolutely hot as possible. Uncomfortably hot, so you wouldn't even want to be in it. But what that does is it then moves that heat into the night when it gets pretty cold, because I'm at a pretty high elevation. And also during the day, I can control the movement of that heat through the building. Now, I have to do some hard thinking about this, because I'm breaking some basic rules, like don't make a solar oven out of your house. But with the coolness of the earth, and of course root cellars off to the side, because the whole roof footprint would heat up the ground around it. But making it so that somewhere between the coolness of the earth and the heat of the sun, both of which we're maximizing, because the earth is actually a little bit colder than we would like. We generally want it to be about 22 degrees Celsius, about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's our comfort zone. But in order to have that larger building have a lot of comfort zone like that, then we have to be sucking in as much of the heat of the sun as we can, and then balancing that with the cooling nature of the earth, and even using that with tunnels and opening windows or walls at certain times to then control the airflow and the humidity. All of this with no electricity. So the experience of having no electricity, which has been extremely annoying, by the way. I'm having to walk into town just so I can check my email with a computer and a battery and anything I can think of charging, and it's heavy, and it's a long trail when you're carrying heavy stuff, and it's just annoying. It wastes my day, and I have to pay the people to use their electricity. There's nothing free for me. I get a lot of contact from people who want shit for free, and my sympathy with that is at zero now. No, you figure it out, because everything here costs me, and I'm living a very uncomfortable, difficult life, and you have access to friends, family, business things. Do whatever the fuck you have to do to figure out how to pay for yourself, because Daddy Brian is done. Anyway, so it's been an interesting realization, and of course that's not the most amazing realization to make buildings that need no electricity, since most buildings throughout history have not had electricity, right? And so then there's the question of lighting. Now, it is true we have solar now, and so it's reasonable to say, oh well, we'll just have solar and we'll have LEDs and it's all fine. That's not the future I want to plan for. I want to plan for a future that is far enough out where there's no electricity at all, where it simply isn't available, where there's no batteries you can buy, your solar panels got old a generation ago. And so I don't know of, as I think about architecture around the world, I mean, I'm not an architectural cross-cultural expert kind of guy, but I'm sure there's been many places that have built buildings for, maximizing the use of sun. And I know there's been people who have built buildings to maximize wind with towers and gathering wind and getting airflow through your building to cool it off usually. But cooling is not a problem if you're willing to dig in. And so if we use the last of the fossil fuels to dig buildings in, and we can do it with shovels and stuff, but it would be awfully nice to use bulldozers. And then we plan, even without glass. Now, that gets a little more extreme, but, sun scoops. In permaculture, they call this sun traps, and they're usually referring to stone rock works that you can put a fruit tree into, and then it heats up and it keeps it hotter during the night, or warmer, or less cold. And really, I mean, all these ancient cultures didn't have the mathematics to think like that. They didn't have the cross-cultural architectural experience to think like that. But to really imagine, how can we create whole courtyards that are sucking in as much sun as possible and shooting that light and therefore heat, as far into the building as possible. And even have shafts in the roof that are designed at exactly the right angle for the latitude to act like a big funnel that funnels a ton of light inside the building. I would have to work with some architects on that to draw it up, with CAD or something, because it's kind of confusing, and it's going to require some physics and engineering. I want everything to be engineered so that, no matter how big an earthquake we can possibly imagine, it could still survive. And of course, full rain capture, and of course, full composting toilets. And that includes pea gardens, where there should be lots of places to pee, because we pee more than we poo, right? More often. And then that all gets handled and goes away from the building into the correct spots. And then also solar ovens and wood ovens too. Because even though I'm really a big fan of these evacuated tube solar hot water heaters, and I want to build whole ovens based on them, I mean, there still can be transitional technology in there. There'll still be solar panels and all that. But the point is to get really thinking in an ancient way of how can we handle all these systems with no electricity at all. Assuming really going back to the most ancient times, and then making really comfortable, awesome spaces that all fit together, that are secure like a castle, that have humidity figured out, airflow, all the parts figured out, but not relying on technology that we really can't rely on. I can't rely on it. So, and apparently I can't even rely on having a vehicle. I do need to fix that somehow. I got to get some income really quick and get a vehicle, because this is ridiculous. But the answer to that one is horses and donkeys. And the Amish know how to do that. So, I mean, I could order an Amish buggy or two, if they have different designs, and then have somebody locally mimic that, and maybe improve it, because my roads are pretty bad. And I think Amish people have access to the English people's roads, so they have nicer roads than I have available. But donkeys, horses, buggies, really, I mean, I've had this idea for a long time of collecting all the best of all the cultures all around the world. But I really have to start thinking in more ancient ways. Useful thought experiments. This has been very uncomfortable. And I don't like being offline. I don't like being out of contact with people. I'll try and post this video tomorrow. My generator is working at the moment. I don't know. But there's no other way that I could get to this point except to go through this experience. And I've had so many years of doing it that it's caused me to be able to think in ways that I don't think I could have otherwise. Oh, and of course I want to raise chickens and rabbits way better, because that's our meat source, that's our clothing source. And then I also want to collect, I have a list of thousands of plants I would love to collect here. Very carefully, of course. But I'd even like some koi fish, some koi carp fish, but that's mainly because they look cool. See you later.